coming up on 41 years of marriage soon. When I was about 1 or 2 years old living on Cyprus, my family was evacuated, and everybody in my family had a go bag. That's what they called it. It was a bug out bag sized for the person. We got evacuated to Beirut, Lebanon, which was a nice place then. My wife got evacuated back home to, I think, Indiana. Um, but we started out being evacuated and having to bug out. A few years later, in the late 60s, I was living in Laos, a landlocked country in Southeast Asia, and they had the biggest flood they'd had forever there. And I got evacuated again as a family. I can remember that one. We went by truck, by boat, by airplane to be evacuated, and we had go bags. Everybody could have one bag. And so I was raised with that. Went through life, went through college, met my girlfriend. We ended up getting married. Went in the military. I served in the military for a little over 20 years. I was in special forces. Before that, I was in the infantry, and I did national level intelligence stuff. And the reason I bring that up is it has kind of shaped my perspective on things over the years. I was a SEER instructor. I'm a father of three. My wife homeschooled our kids until about high school. All three of them were the valedictorian of their class. I attribute that to her. I was a pastor. I still am a pastor. I've retired from active preaching, but I'm still a pastor. In Kansas, my wife and I brought these up there. This is the only visual aid. My wife and I both wrote a book. She has a couple. So we're authors on the preparedness field. Hers is called Homestead Hints. Mine is Survivalist Family. And I run Viking Preparedness on Patreon and YouTube. That's me. That's why I get to stand up here and talk. I'm looking at the people here, and I'm thinking you are all prepper friendly. What's the new word? Prepper adjacent, something like that. But I bet you there's different levels of preppers here. And my talk is, if I had a screen, which I don't need, TEOTWAWKI, prep, something in mitigation, threats and mitigation. The end of the world as we know it. People say SHTF or WROL. What's WROL stand for? Without rule of law. I think a lot of American preppers focus on that one. There's a lot of potential causes for these situations, for a breakdown in everything that we have, and that is not my plan today to talk about what all the different causes are. You all know that. That's why you're here. That's why you're interested. This is not Doomsday Preppers, which I was on, where they say, I'm worried about an economic breakdown of the system, or I'm worried about nuclear war with Russia. Whatever. There's a lot of things that could happen and a lot of different causes, but what happens with new preppers, and I would say intermediate preppers, is it starts to feel really overwhelming. It's like, how do I get ready for a volcano going off in Yellowstone? How do I get ready for nuclear war? How do I get ready for economic collapse? How do I get, and people start spinning wheels and worrying about it. Another problem potentially is that, and I think this is a real problem with American preppers, they focus too much on one area. Like looking out over this crowd, I bet you this is a well-armed crowd with a lot of ammo at home, right? And that's an area, and I'm not saying it's not important, but sometimes we forget to focus on other areas also, and so we have an unbalanced preparation setup. We focus as Americans, as proud capitalist Americans, we focus on what to buy to ensure that we make it through what we foresee is coming. I looked it up this morning just to make sure I had current data. The prepper industry, there's a dollar figure on it. A year is $217 billion a year spent on prepper stuff, and they're expecting that to go up to 230 by 2030. So in the next 4 years, $1 billion. we're supporting that. We go buy stuff, and that's not necessarily always the solution. All right, so what I've done, I've thought of, how many people here are on my Patreon? Good. That's not that many. For you, this may be a little bit of a review, but you can take notes and get the nuances from it to spread. For everyone else, this might be new. I think no matter what the scenario is, whether it's Yellowstone going off, New Madrid going off, economic collapse, or as just came out again today, aliens, man, have landed. As a prepper, as somebody who makes it through the initial blast, whatever that blast is, there are four things that are going to get you. There's four threats. Well, PJ, there's five. People love doing that. But I'm going to go over those four threats, and then I'm going to go over different ways to mitigate, to take care of, to meet those threats so that they're not a big problem for you. No matter what the scenario is, zombie apocalypse to the earthquake going off, number one threat, and they're not rank ordered threats, it's just number one of the four as I label it, is starvation. And in starvation, I include water. And so you will not have access possibly to food and water. And I think preppers kind of get that. There's a lot of things that can hurt your ability to have food. This crowd probably has more food in their house than the average American. I was a volunteer firefighter for 10 years, and in my little district, I probably went into over 90% of the houses in my township over those 10 years. And I looked around. I mean, I didn't open up medicine cabinets and stuff, but I paid attention, and most people have a shockingly little amount of food in their home. I think if you think about, and you should think, how much food do you have in your house? If I shut your door and locked it and you cannot leave your home, how long can you eat 3 meals a day? A problem with Americans on that is that most of us have jobs, right? Everybody, who here has a job outside the home? Oh, wow, you guys are blessed. Not very many. That's good. For people who work outside the home, they eat a lot of their food outside the home. It's like, well, I don't eat breakfast. Any calories you put into your body before lunchtime is breakfast. That's how I count it. So if you put cream and sugar in your coffee at work, that's food that's going in your body. You probably don't have that food at home. You bought it on the way to work or you're filling up at work. Lunch, most people go out to eat for lunch. And dinner, a lot of people go out to a lot of dinners, whether that's McDonald's or a pizza or whatever, during the week. And so they just don't have the food in their house because they don't need it. That could be a problem if somebody hacked our computer system, which they're trying to do every day, and all of a sudden, no grocery stores are operational. They're not selling you food. They're not selling food to McDonald's. They're not selling food to Pizza Hut. And so lack of food is a problem. Starvation, I also include water. Do y'all know the rule of threes when it comes to wilderness survival? You can live 3 minutes without what? Air. You can live 3 hours without adequate shelter in extreme climate. Next one, you can live 3 days without water. Now, those are rules of thumb, but it goes to show you that without liquid coming into your body in 3 days, you're in a lot of trouble. And so I include that in starvation. That is a threat that we should focus on. Another threat, I just realized when I was writing my notes, I have an initial for it now, PBB. People behaving badly. This is one a lot of American preppers kind of think about, although I don't know that they plan for it as such, but it's like, there's going to be zombies out there. There's going to be people trying to take my stuff. There's going to be people. The bottom line is there is. SK and I just drove to Colorado, then we drove to Virginia, and then we drove here, all within about 2 weeks. I've been doing a lot of driving, and I see people on the roads, and people act the ever-loving fool on the roads today when they're well-fed and everything's going fine and swimmingly. What are they going to do when there's an emergency and you don't understand, I have to get home? I have met people in my circles, not in my current circles, but when I was in the military, I met military officers. When I worked for the government, I had people in the government who said, hey, when it comes down to it, I'm feeding my family. I got to do what I got to do to take care of my family. Well, that's cool, except what do you think they were doing right now to take care of their family? Nothing. They didn't have food or anything like that at home. They had guns and ammo and they knew how to use it. Those people are going to behave badly. I say that when your good Christian neighbor who goes to church every Sunday and you like him and he keeps his lawn nicely mowed, but he's not preparing, when he looks down into the face of his 5-year-old daughter who hasn't had anything to eat for 4 days, and he can see her starting to fade, and she says, Daddy, I'm hungry, he's going to take action to make sure his little diamond gets fed. And unfortunately, that action is probably going to make him part of the problem. So that's people behaving badly. That's a threat. And it could go everything from people starting forest fires to people breaking into homes or whatever. So we've got starvation, which includes water, people behaving badly. And then the third category is really it goes over every category, but it's medical. Now, in the end, if we die, we're dying probably from a medical reason. So you could say that's everything. But what I'm talking about is it's kind of broad spectrum. There are an alarming number of Americans that are on daily meds. They have to take the medicine. If they don't take the medicine, they die. Well, guess what? When there's a breakdown in the system, they're not going to have access to those medicines. There's an alarming number of people, many of my peers now, as I get older, have had heart attacks, and they are told, don't shovel snow. Don't shovel snow. Well, in an emergency, I'm talking big emergency, you are going to be called on to do physically difficult things or die. You're going to have to run over there. And if you're not fit medically, it may get you. People are going to do stupid things. They have a chainsaw that they bought because PJ said to buy a chainsaw and they never used it. And now they need to cut up that tree for firewood and they go out there and they cut their leg. Okay, you cut your leg with a chainsaw today. That's a bad wound. You need to get on it. You need to treat it. You need to get yourself to the emergency room where they are going to take care of you. If you no longer have access to the emergency room, and I can give you lots of reasons other than there's no emergency room there, but if you don't have access to the emergency room, you have a very real problem on your hands with a wound like a chainsaw wound. So that's a medical issue. Other medical issues are people are on devices, things like that, hey, it is what it is. But those are going to get a lot of preppers. So we have starvation, people behaving badly, medical issues, and then we have one that my people on Patreon helped me come up with the name for it. I'm just labeling it loosely environmental issues. Whether it is a blizzard of snow coming in, or it's a flood, or a tsunami, or it's a radioactive cloud coming, or a forest fire, things like this, I don't care what kind of prepper you are, if that's coming your way, that's a problem. So now that I've got people going, oh my goodness, these are problems, what are we going to do? Which hopefully some of you all have already thought this through. I'd like to go over 3 tiers of preparedness that can kind of cover these. And these are arbitrary on my part. I'm like, this is level 1, this is basic level, this is level 2, this is intermediate level preparedness, this is level 3. You're the man or the woman right now with preparedness. I just made them up, all right? But it allows us to kind of look at things in categories. So for starvation, to mitigate the threat of starvation, you have to have food. You have to have stored food. I say to be at a basic level prepper, you have to have at least 2 months of food in your home, meaning you don't have to go anywhere to get this food. You've got 2 months of food, and that includes water, in your home. Now, why do I come up with 2 months? Why not 1 month? The government, whether it's FEMA, the Red Cross, DHS, they all put out all these different things about being prepared as an American. You should have a grab-and-go kit. You should have ready-to-eat food in your house. They say every American should have 2 weeks worth of easy-to-prepare food in your home. Don't forget the can opener. They say that. The reason they say to have 2 weeks worth of food in your home comes back from the Cold War, when they thought if we could just shelter people in place away from radiation for 2 weeks, and that's assuming one strike, um, then the half life of the radiation is such that they can come out and start doing things. So you need two weeks worth of food in your house so you don't have to leave. So they've stuck with that. Then they tell you should have a grab and go kit. Make a kit, make a plan. That's what they say. The grab and go kit we call bug out bags. The average American who's supposed to do this is like they show a bin, like a tote bin, and in that bin you should have 3 days worth of food for your family. So we have 2 weeks, and now we have half a week. And then they say in your vehicle, you should have a kit in your vehicle. We call those get me home bags. And in that, you should have 3 days worth of food. Sounds kind of like a Bob. So now we're up to another week. And then they say if you work away from the home, you should have 3 days worth of food at your workplace in case you get stuck at work. So you start adding that up. They're starting to approach a month of food. So having a month of food stored in your house does not make you a prepper. It makes you a good American citizen. That's what they want everybody to have. So I say basic level preparedness, have at least a month worth of food that you don't have to do a whole lot with. Now, you could draw very intricate diagrams. If I have food, that then presupposes underneath that category, I need a way to prepare that food. I need a way to serve that food. I need a way to clean up from that food. And you have to keep going. Buying a case of MREs and setting it there, that might work. You don't have to, well, it's only 12 meals. You don't have to prepare it. You don't have to clean up after it and that kind of thing. But MREs get old. Okay, so level one of people, and you should have at least 2 weeks worth of water stored up at your house. That's from the government. The reason I didn't make that 2 months worth of water is water's 8 pounds a gallon. The common wisdom is you need a gallon of water per person per day. My wife and I live off grid. We've lived off grid in a house we built since 2012. And we use a gallon of water per person per day, but we don't use that much water. The people who say, you're going to go look at your water bill, look at your water meter, it'll tell you how much water you need. I'm telling you, when you're in that situation, you're just not going to use that much water. But to drink and to basic wash up and wash your hands and to cook, you're going to need about a gallon per person per day. We have that water stored at our house now, ready to go. You can go deeper than that. Medical. I think to be level one, mitigating the threats of the medical things that are going to happen, is you're going to have at least a robust first aid kit. Refuge Medical is my friends and brothers, and they make the best kits on the market. You can build a robust first aid kit yourself. You can go to the store, you're going to have some training or some advice in order to do that. But what are you going to do for that chainsaw wound? What are you going to do when somebody falls down and their arm looks funny? Now, you should have gear to take care of that, and a robust first aid kit is a good first start, because I don't think most Americans have a good first aid kit in their house. Okay, environmental. How many people here live within 2 hours of here? Okay, so you understand snow here. It's amazing the number of people who live in a place like this that don't own a snow shovel. Well, PJ, you just said some people aren't supposed to shovel snow. I know. But they have the snow blower, or they pay the boy next door to do it. But when the boy next door is not coming over to do it, and when you're out of gas for your snow blower and you need to shovel snow, that's almost a tongue twister. They sell snow shovels at the stores ahead of big storms, and they sell out. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I need a snow shovel. It's like, why don't you already have one? That's just a basic environmental thing. Other things might be plastic sheeting. What if the tree comes through your roof and it's raining, and the fire department's not coming to help you this time? It's on you to keep your family sheltered. Having the ability, plastic sheeting or tar paper, or a stapler or something like that you're going to fix that. Just envision in your mind, what would I do if 3 of my windows blew out and it's 15 degrees outside? It's cold in my house. How am I going to fix that? And having those things to fix now. I think that makes it level 1. So that's level 1 mitigation. Level 2, intermediate preparedness, is where I would guess, if I had to guess, many of y'all are. You're at level 2, and that's good. That's going to put you above 90-something% of Americans when something bad happens. 1 year of food. 1 year of food. I bet you a lot of you don't have a year of food. I'm going to go over calorie count next, but we used to, I'll kind of jump it a little bit. We used to have a rule of thumb, and it may be in my book. It may be, I haven't read my own book for a while, that a good rule of thumb is 1 5-gallon bucket of either wheat, corn, rice, or beans is enough calories for one person for 1 month. And so therefore, 12 buckets per person was our standard. You have to have 12 buckets per person. And you have to eat the corn with the wheat, with the beans to get the amino things. Let a doctor talk to you about that. But just, I did the math on basic calories in a 5-gallon bucket of each of those 4. And we came up with a rule of thumb that it was 1 bucket per person per month, or 12 buckets for a year. And then TJ, Bear Independent, Bear from the internet, joined us. And he's really good with numbers, and he crunches numbers all the time. And he crunched his numbers, and he said, we are screwing ourselves at 1 bucket per person. 1 bucket per person provided about 1,700 calories a day per person. Any idea how much people who are carrying 20 to 30-pound backpacks, not very heavy, a lot of middle schoolers' school book bag is heavier than that. Appalachian Trail hikers carry 20 to 30 pounds. Do you know how many calories a day they burn? 6,000 calories a day. And I was saying 1,700 calories a day is enough per person. That's just starvation diet is all that was. So we doubled it. And so we're up to about 3,500 calories per day, which, depending on what you're doing, if you're one of our young people that's out chopping wood all day, that's probably not going to be enough calories for you, but we have a plan for that. So I'm just telling you now, it's 2 buckets of product, wheat, rice, corn, or beans, per person per month is a way you can start figuring that. And I think if you're an intermediate level prepper, you'll have a year's supply of food. Now, you can get a year's supply of food without doing all that bucket and Mylar bag nonsense. You can just go to the grocery store and buy stuff that comes in boxes, cans, and jars, because almost all of that will last a year easy. Now, the problem is the golden rule of food storage: store what you eat what you store, rotate. That makes you rotate through your crop so you don't have a 15-year-old bottle of ketchup that you now have to choke down. Most Americans aren't eating at home 3 meals a day, so it's really hard to rotate through a year's supply of food. So that's another whole thing. For a year's supply of water to make you an intermediate prepper, that's really a plan, and that's indefinite water. You need to have a plan. How are you going to replenish your water? My very first video, which is on YouTube, which is cringy. It's so cringy. I was so nervous in front of the camera, but it's a PACE, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. And I just used water as an example. So you have your primary plan for water, your alternate, but you need a plan for water. You need to be able to find the water. You need to be able to get the water in a bucket or a container of some kind. You need to get that water home. You need to purify that water once you get home. And then you need to be able to store it so you have it when you need it. There's a lot there. There were a lot of old women with little bandanas on that got killed by snipers in the Balkans back in the 90s, just going to the one water source in town. People behaving badly. They didn't have a good water source. They had to go, where do the lions hunt? The watering hole, right? So you need a plan for water. People behaving badly, just spoke about that. I think a level 2 prepper for that problem will have firearms and ammo. I bet you 98% of y'all are good there. It's what we love to focus on as Americans. But you should also have some self-defense training. You should be able to take care of yourself in a fight, even if you're a little old lady. You should be able to handle yourself. You shouldn't melt in fear at the thought that, I don't know, pick some big scary looking dude out here is like, oh, and he's coming for you. You should be able to deal with that. I'm not saying you're going to win, but you should be able to deal with that a lot better than a lot of people are now. So you're going to have to take some kind of self-defense training. You should get comfortable in your body. Um, Level 2. Medical. I said for level 1, y'all should have a robust first aid kit. For intermediate level, you should have bins, tote bins of medical supplies. I said I was on a volunteer fire department for 10 years. I went to so many more car wrecks than I did fires. It is amazing the amount of medical supplies that is used on 2 bleeding people on the side of the road. Then understand that they're going to transport those people 20 minutes away to an emergency room, and all of that stuff is getting thrown away, and new stuff is getting put on. And then tomorrow, new stuff is getting put on. And 2 days later, new stuff is getting put on. And all of a sudden, your robust first aid kit that you packed is like, holy cow, what are we going to do now? And so you're going to need bins of supplies. I am still on the lookout. We've been staying at a lot of hotels lately. The sheets are generally decent in the hotel. They look relatively new. That tells me there has to be a plan in the hotel to when the sheets get marginal, they get rid of them. I would love to find a box about this big of used sheets, because I would then wash them and then I would sterilize some of them and put them in food savers and save it to make bandages that we could use. And then Civil War, you'd see people with the pot outside washing bandages. We're reusing them. It's a thing to think about. And so bins of medical supplies. Additionally, you're going to need medicine. How many people here have a course of flu medicine? You know, when you get a really bad cold or you get the flu and it lasts about a week and you take this much medicine, are you sending your loved one out to the store to buy that, whatever you take, NyQuil, aspirin, throat lozenges, whatever? Oh, I don't feel good. Go get this stuff. Or do you already have it? I think you should have 2 courses of that for every member in your family. Now you're talking bins, again, of just regular medicine. We're not talking high-speed Jace Medical, antibiotics and stuff like that, but just regular medicine that you use on the day-to-day. Like kids use, you can double dose. I'm not a medical professional by any stretch of the imagination. We used to dose our kids with Motrin and acetaminophen, like every couple hours, one or the other, to break their fevers. And you can evidently, we believed you could do that. You do what you want, but that's a lot of medicine. And then in addition to your first aid kit, to be an intermediate level prepper, you need to have first aid skills. You need to know what to do with that scratch, with that scrape, with that cut, with that fever. There used to be a time in America when many households, most households had nursing skills. How do you deal with a bedpan? Do you even have bedpans? Most of you don't. How do you deal with a bedpan? How do you change the sheets underneath a person who can't sit up, but they've messed their sheets? People used to know how to do that in this country. How do you treat a fever? How do you treat a really bad cough with somebody? I love the cowboy movies. They come dragging Zeke in. He's just been shot, and they clear the table and they throw him up on the table. But there was usually in the movie, because, it's a movie, some old lady knows what to do. And she's like, okay, we're going to boil this. We're going to do this. You go grab that. Talk about Civil War medicine, right? They didn't know what germs were during the Civil War. They cut limbs off because they knew if they tried to treat this limb with a bullet in it, this person's going to die. They got good at cutting bones off and the person living. If they could do it in the 1800s, you could do it today. Do you know how? Would you freak out? Would you say, sorry, man, you're going to die. You got a bullet in your arm? See, There's things there. I'm getting a little bit into the more advanced realm, but you should have basic first aid skills. A lot of places have a Red Cross where you can go sign up for AED class, CPR, basic first aid classes. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts used to teach that stuff. Environmental. I hear one now that makes you kind of like an intermediate prepper. That's a generator. Generators are awesome. I was hoping after Y2K was nothing that people would sell their generators, because you couldn't get a generator leading up to Y2K. And I wanted to get a $500 generator for like $300. That didn't happen. So it gave me hope for America. At least people kept their generators. But a generator is a good thing when you haven't had power for 2 weeks. What a lot of people don't think about in a survival situation, a hurricane just came through and trashed everything. It's still hot at night, like in Louisiana, and having a generator that will allow you to run your fan or your air conditioner or something like that can be a very nice thing. Not to mention people who are on, what's that, CPAP machines and things like that. I have done many commercials, many promotions on my YouTube channel of these solar generators. I love them. I love them. You should get you some. You can power lights, you can power a CPAP machine, you can do a lot of things, and you can recharge it in the sun if you have to. Um, those are a great, great addition. Plywood. Every year during hurricane season, plywood sells out, and I'm here in the Ozarks trying to build my house, and all of a sudden the OSB just skyrockets in price. Why? Because they're rebuilding Florida with plywood, or they're all buying it ahead of the storm to over their windows. Well, what did they do with the plywood they bought last year? They throw it away. It's like people don't save plywood. You can save plywood. Put it in your garage against the back wall. It'll be fine. But having plywood, having a drill gun, having a box of screws, knowing what you're going to do when something happens and your windows blow out, but having that now because you're not going to be able to go to the hardware store if it's a really big event. I mentioned Katrina, and if you look at Katrina, overall, the country did okay. It was very catastrophic, and they gave the Bush administration a lot of garbage. In 3 days, they were giving MREs to people. You didn't feed us for 3 days. Well, we've told you to be ready to be on your own for 2 weeks. In 3 days, they were feeding people, and aid came in from all over, and they bust people out of there and yada, yada. And people always tell the story, and it's true. When there's a blizzard or a hurricane or a tornado, the community comes together. You know why they come together? Because they know there's an end to this problem. They're coming together. They're coming from another state. Grindstone Ministries goes all over the country dealing with disasters. They come to help because they know everything's fine at home. I can leave mom at home and come rebuild this house. I can give you my food and water that I collected at my church because we're good back in Dakota. Not if it's a big thing. If it's a big thing, everyone's taking care of themselves first. And you should. As a first responder, they teach you take care of yourself first. It doesn't do us any good as an organization if you just created another incident coming to the incident, if you get in a wreck. And so when there's a worldwide, US-wide problem, you're going to be on your own a lot more than people have been lately. Okay. Level 3. How many people think they're... Sorry, I'll whisper. How many people think they're a fairly advanced prepper? Good. Here's my call on it. Before I do, I wrote some figures. 2,700 calories a day. We hear in the U.S., at least anyway, health-wise, you need about 2,000 calories a day, right, to maintain your weight. But if you're working, if you're chopping wood, carrying wood, fixing the house, pushing a car out of the way, whatever, daily, Appalachian Trail, 6,000 calories a day. So at 2,700 calories a day, most of y'all, I can tell by looking at you, and I'm talking to myself too, eat more than 2,700 calories a day of food today. Okay, today, when you can just go get it freely, praise the Father. 2,700 calories a day is 19,000 calories a week. It's 81,000 calories a month. And I got this number from TJ, but I bear independent, but I checked it. It's 1 million calories a year. 1 million calories a year is what you need to be able to provide yourself and every member of your household. So I recommend that everybody grows a garden. How many people here are growing or plan to grow a garden? That's not enough hands. I say grow a garden, produce your own food. But let's think about that. You've got a lovely tomato patch. Look at that tomato patch. Man, I have 20 tomato plants. They're just making these delicious tomatoes. A tomato has 20 calories. You need 1 million a year. 10 green beans, which is like a serving of green beans. But if you've ever grown beans, I do. I love picking my beans. And you end up with like a bucket like this big of beans. Wow, we can can some beans and we can have some for dinner. 10 green beans is 10 calories. 10 calories. I had the idea, we sat around on Shofar Mountain. We call ourselves Shofarians. It's like a whimsical term for our tribe. We have tribes and camps and things like that. And we sat around and we were trying to figure out what can we grow here in the Ozarks that's going to fill us up. Hey, we'll get the micronutrients and the protein and this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, we're going to want a belly full of something. And we can't grow rice and we can't grow wheat, and corn doesn't do so good where we live. Like here, corn is awesome. What are we going to fill ourselves with? And then we thought, let's grow apples and pears. Apples and pears are awesome. You know, eating an apple, you can feel kind of full. You can make applesauce, apple butter, dried apples, canned apples. You can do a lot of things with apples or pears. Cool. An apple, 95 calories. You need 2,700 calories a day. Here's less than 100. You need 27 apples a day of calories. It's potatoes. This year, we're observing what we call Shemitah year. We are not planting this year, but I told SK next year, which starts in about February for us in the Ozarks, we are planting potatoes. I want to plant a lot of potatoes. A potato, average potato, is 190 calories. It's still only 190 calories, and we need 2,700 a day. Think about that. Think about storing that kind of thing. It's mind-boggling, and that leads me to believe, oh, my final number. A pound of beef. Anyone want to make a guess how many calories are in a pound of beef? It's close. 1,100 calories. 1,100. I just told you all those calories. 1,100 in a pound of beef. The average half side of beef is 250 pounds of meat that you get out of it. So a cattle, I'm not a cattleman. We have cattlemen, though, in the Shofarians. A cow is about 500 pounds of meat. That would be 550,000 calories in a cow. When you need 1 million a year, that's one cow every 6 months per person. That's starting to sound a lot better than potatoes and tomatoes to me. But if you have 4 people, you need more cows, right? And it starts getting big. We did math for a while. We had sheep and goats. We still have sheep. We have a lot of sheep, the Shofarians. SK was the last holdout on goats out of the different camps we have. We did the math for our little grouping. We call it a crew. They say you need a palm size 4 ounces of meat a day, roughly, for your protein intake. We did the math on how many goats we'd have to raise to have that much, because see, you don't just have that much meat, you have to have a continuing supply. And you don't eat a baby goat. That's not how you maximize it. You let it get to be about teenager size or bigger, and that's when you eat it. You need a lot of goats because they don't do that overnight. And the numbers get astronomical. And so to survive indefinitely in a really bad collapse scenario, you're going to have to homestead. You're going to have to be like the farmers in the 1800s and before, where you've got your milk cow and you've got a couple cows out there in the field and you have a big garden and you shoot a deer every now and then and you go fishing and you forage for plants, and you're going to have to put it all together yourself. If you want to be an advanced level prepper, you're going to start homesteading. And the thing is, the argument I get from everybody is, you don't understand, I can't afford to buy a homestead. Who can right now? It's tough. But what you can do right now is start working on all your homesteading skills. If you can't raise chickens legally in your backyard, you need to move. You just need to go somewhere else. Move out further, have a bigger commute or something. You can start with chickens. SK started with chickens in a foreign country where they didn't have hardware stores. And she literally pulled wood out of smoking Gehenna trash piles that never quit burning to build her first chicken coop. Chickens are easy, and you get an egg a day from a chicken, which is, what is that, 6 grams of protein per egg, I think. So let me go back here. If you want to be a level 3 prepper, you need to be a homesteader. And all of a sudden, when you become a homesteader, I'm using that term, I call it neo-pioneers also. Things like the latest Guga don't really matter anymore. It's like, you know what? I need a good pair of muck boots. I need a good potato fork. This shovel sucks. I want a better shovel. I want a lighter shovel that doesn't hurt my foot when I push it. It's like these esoteric things when you start. I want a good garden hose. I want a hose that doesn't crack in the sun. It's this weird stuff that it's not making that $217 billion prepper thing, but it becomes really important. I need one of those rubber buckets that doesn't crack when it freezes to feed the critters. But this is how you're going to produce food for yourself and for others when there's no system. You can only store so much food. You know, what is it? Moths and rust and thieves stealing your stuff. You could put all the food in the world in a warehouse. Somebody could take it from you. Or it could burn down, or tornado could blow it away, or whatever. You need to get into where you're truly self-sufficient. And so please consider homesteading. People behaving badly, level 3. My solution to that is not another firearm. It's not another set of nods or something like that. My solution for dealing with people behaving badly is people. You need people. You have to sleep sometime. If it's just me and SK, somebody's got to be awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's when we like to attack. Somebody's got to be awake all the time, ready to respond to trouble. What if I have, God forbid, what if I'm down because I'm sick, or I have a broken leg or something, and now it's just her trying to keep the homestead, keep the guard force awake, to, make sure no one's sneaking up and stealing all the chickens. You need people. You need to have people who are going to live proximate to one another. That's a huge problem with preppers. We've kind of solved that at Shofar Mountain. I can talk about that offline if you want. But it doesn't do any good if you're on my crew and you live a mile away. Well, I can run a mile in 8 minutes. Well, not anymore, but I used to. Whatever, you're a quarter mile away. I can't see you. I can't help you. If you can't help your neighbor by knocking bad guys off his porch, you're not living close enough together. So you have to come up with something to that. There's a reason that they had villages and hamlets in the medieval age where all the houses were concentrated. One of those was to maximize agricultural land. So we do all the fields outside of the village. The other thing is everybody's close together so they can take care of each other. So you're going to need people. You're going to need a crew, and that's another whole talk for another time, but you need to start cultivating friends. And quite frankly, this is a great place to meet like-minded people, and most of y'all are from a couple hours around here. So you should be making contacts with people and then doing follow-on things. Medical, level 3. You need trauma training. If you can recruit an emergency room nurse or an emergency room doctor into your group, you win. you win. But most of you cannot. We have nurses, but we don't have an emergency room nurse. You need to get trained in trauma medicine. And I'm not just talking about stop the bleed, although that's a start, stopping this terrible bleed. But what do we do next? And what do we do next? And what do we do next? That requires training. There's books, there's videos, there's classes. You need to get some. And then, like I mentioned before, nursing. You need nursing care. It used to not be a thing. All women knew how to do nursing stuff. Now most don't. Most people go to the emergency room when their kid has a sore throat. It's like, come on. And so to be level 3 medical, you got to get that training. And then I was scratching hard for figuring what's a top end prepper for environmental disaster. Y'all know what Atlas survival shelters are? I really want one. Of course, I'd really like $500,000 also, but an underground shelter. We can read in the Bible that the rich men are going to hide themselves in the rocks, and please pass over me. They're hiding themselves in the rocks now. So that's where I'd put that. Most of you don't have one of those. I want to finish up with some truths. If I can find that note card. There we go. There's some overarching guidelines for preparedness, and these are things people hate hearing me talk about when I talk about it on Patreon. The number one thing you can do as a prepper, I'm going to leave here today and become a better prepper, is to get in better physical condition. Nobody here is fit enough. I could pick the fittest man or woman here, and if they're super fit, they'll admit it. They'll say, yeah, I could be fitter. You're not fit enough. You have to be strong. You have to have wind to be, endurance to be able to run. You have to be able to do work. You have to be flexible so you don't go doink and throw your back out when you turn around to grab a sack of rice or something. And we don't want to hear it, and we don't want to do it because it's hard and it sucks and I get sweaty and it hurts and I'm not very good and people will think I'm fat. Guys, if you work out, if you get physically fit, it will save you so much problem. Doing it, working in the garden, handling the goat, doing a buddy carry for first aid, people behaving badly, popping somebody, environmental concerns, shoveling the snow. That's all physicality. You're going to have to live a more physical existence when the system falls apart. And so I beat people up about it. I beat myself up about it. But please consider getting in better shape and doing the things. Second thing, I have 3. The second thing is the whole dichotomy of stuff versus skills. Americans love stuff. Oh, here, hold on. Yeah, let me buy that. That'll help me survive Armageddon. If I can make it go away with money as an American, that's good. It's easy. I feel like all my time in the cubicle last week is worth something. I got this cool gadget. Some gadgets are very important. Some gadgets are going to enhance your ability to survive. But those gadgets are almost useless without skills. And skills, can you buy skills? Kinda. You can find a trainer and pay them. Last time I looked it up, it's this inflation thing we got going on. It was about $500 to $1,000 a day for training. You want to learn how to drive a race car? $500 to $1,000. You want to learn how to do trauma medicine? $500 to $1,000. You want to learn how to really shoot that handgun? $500 to $1,000. That's money. The best way goes to my last point here, people. In this group right here, there are so many skill sets. There are so many people here that he's good at that, she's good at that, he's good at that, she's good at that. And if you can connect with those people and have them teach you, you're learning skills. But the thing is, it's a multi-layered process. To get a skill, you have to first learn it. So you're going to have to find somebody to teach you this skill. Most skills, you're going to need a person. Most skills, you're not really going to be able to read it in a book or watch a YouTube video and then have that skill. You're going to need a human there to work with you. So find people to do that. And then I've gone to his class, and he's taught me how to do this thing. If that's the last time I ever do it, I haven't learned anything. I have to now take that, what I was taught, and go put that into application and practice it and rehearse it and do it so that I fail, and then figure out what I did wrong and do it again. It's like golfing. It's like anything. Get instruction, then go do it, and you'll get better. And then finally, people. So I said it's coming back to the last point. People are so important. And as preppers, we're trying to get ready. No one is coming to help you. Yeah, I got that. You still need people. And you need to work on your people skills. A lot of preppers have horrible people skills. We're very independent. You're not the boss of me. You can't tell me what to do. And I don't need you. Fact of the matter is you do. And you ought to get over your big bad self and figure that out, that you need people, and figure out. Here's the other thing. We like each other. I think we're good. We're not like best of buddies. We don't know each other that well, but we get along. But you know what? They're not exactly like me. I'm not exactly like them. And if the way we look at people is, I'm not hanging out with anybody with bat wings on their forehead. We're looking for reasons not to hang out and like people. We need to get over that. We need to figure out how can we help one another. He has these mad skills, and I need to learn these skills. Yo, man, can you teach me that? I can teach you this. And that's what we need to do. And then when I was talking about skill sets and teaching and how we have people here who know stuff, too many of you are all shucks. Oh, I'm not that good at it. I can't teach you. I don't care how good you're at it. If you're better than everybody else in your group at it, even though you're not an expert at it, you know more than they do. Teach them what you know. People. All right, so I'm going to finish up with 3 things fast. Physicality. Get yourself in better shape. You know what that means. Stuff versus skills. Yes, you need stuff, but do not neglect the skills. You have to work on your skill sets. No one's going to do it for you. And finally, people. We need people. Thank you very much. Absolutely. You can lead that.
Does anybody have any questions for PJ? One question right here.
Yeah, I have a question. Lauren and I are from Michigan, and we're very interested in getting, building a community, getting a network going. That's part of the reason that we're down here, is to network and meet people and make connections. Do you have any advice?
Yes. You want to form a network. You want to form a community. These are the people that you are willing to accept in your community. You all have to figure that out. You have to figure out where your red lines are, where your must-haves and your cannot-haves. I mean, I'll give you an example. I've been on many survival teams. I've formed some. I've joined some that were existing. Every one I was on was generally Christian in nature. And I'm telling you, if it was specified or not, every one of them was like, if you said you were a Satanist, you're not getting on our team. That's a cannot have, right? I'm just using that as an example. You have to know where your must-haves and your cannot-haves are. And the narrower you make your acceptability, the less people you're going to find. So that's where I got back to, you got to get over your big bad self a little bit and figure out these are acceptable. Sure, I would like you to have this, but if you have this, you're okay. So that's the first thing, is figure out what your standards are. To find those people, you're going to have to go through a lot of people. You're going to have to meet a lot of people until you find the 2 that you're going to kludge with. That's okay. That's okay, but you have to cast a wide net to find those people. So coming to things like this and then meeting and talking to people, and maybe you 2 split up and you're talking to different people, and you come back and go, hey, there's this guy I want you to go talk to. Get your feel, get your eyes on this person, or vice versa. Go meet these people, take down the information, and go. I have Viking meetups all over the country. They're less now than they used to be, but it's basically people just I tell people, here's how you host a meetup. It's not hard to do, which will take us longer than we need to, but you host gatherings, people come. The purpose of that gathering is just to provide a safe space for people to meet each other. And then it's like, I like this guy. Out of everybody who came here, I like this guy. We're going to go do something else afterwards. So meet a lot of people. And then from there, you'll figure it out. There's more. I'm going to write a book on it, but I don't have an hour on that. Yes, ma'am.
So the people question. So I was in the military. So you have a purpose. You're doing something. So it doesn't really matter if you like the person or not.
Correct.
So I come be a part of people. I meet people, and in the beginning, there's a big group of people, and that people breaks up. And I'm learning that these people can't seem to work together because they don't like that other person. So like in the military, it's a little bit easier because it's just you just do your job. But when you're working with people who can't get along, or somebody doesn't really care that those people don't get along, so as you're establishing your groups, what are some tips on conflict resolution, whether it's those two
Sure.
people or the people within that group to help those other people?
When I became a pastor, many years ago, I hadn't gone to seminary or anything like that. And so I sought out other pastors in my area. And I said, hey, I'm Joe Fox. I'm the new pastor at this church. Just want to chit chat. And one guy gave me a bit of advice. He had a successful church, and he was being sarcastic. He goes, pastoring's a pretty good gig if it wasn't for the people. Leadership is all about getting people to do something they wouldn't normally do. If they would normally do it, they don't need you as a leader to guide them. Maybe they would want to go over there and pick daisies, and you're like, nope, we're going over here to pick clover. But how do you get them to do that? We're not in the military anymore. I can't say, hey, listen up, I told you to go over there and pick clover. He's going to say, and he's gone. You just lost the guy. I see bad leaders go, yeah, well, I didn't want him anyway. He doesn't know how to follow orders. Dude, you need to get with the program. And so we need to learn how to motivate our people. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a personal example. Shofar Mountain is split up into what we call camps. So we have groups of people that live there and groups of people that live there, and then they're all kind of kludging together. And then on a certain interval, we would get together, the whole tribe, for events. Well, that's a 3-hour drive away. I really am not feeling it. And I don't really know those people. So I'm uncomfortable around those people. And so all of a sudden, I've got half my people on my camp not going to tribe events. Well, we like it here and we like us, and it's just easy. We don't have to drive. And so I had to pull them all together. And that's where you have to figure out your leadership style. Who can I yell at? Who can I plead with? Who can I explain things to? But it's like, gang, let's remember the goodness. I tell people, most people out there, most preppers would kill for what we have. Most preppers don't have a crew, a little group of people that's going to do things together. We have crews inside of camps, and then we have camps inside of a tribe. It's wonderful, but it's not free. And so you've got to drive 3 hours to the tribe event when it's time to do that. You have to give up yourself. I know you don't like the seating when we go to that venue. Too bad, suck it up. This is a greater purpose thing. And so as a leader, when the people don't like that person, you've got to figure out how to say, hey, are we as a group better off with that person or without them? And then you get into the theory of quarters and nickels and pennies and what you want to do with that. I'm just saying, if all you're looking for is $20 gold pieces, you're going to be very lonely, right? So I tell people, hey, I was a Green Beret for 20 years. I can do a lot of things really well. I give people things to do, and they cannot do it as good as I could do it. But I can't do all those things at once. And so you got to work with people, and you have to convince them. It's better that we work together. It's hard. Yep.
So as far as rules, so like crews or whatever some people like a lot of rules.
Yeah,
some
they do.
people don't like any rules.
Right.
Can you really have a group of people organized in doing this a lifestyle without even any kind of guidelines, something that, you know, you're, like you said, you can't nitpick it to where, like, you know, nobody qualifies.
You're going to have rules of one kind or another, or you don't have anything. A country has to have borders, or it's not a country. But getting down in the weeds on the rules unnecessarily is unnecessary, and you have to have buy-in on the rules. So what I would suggest for a new forming group, the leader usually has a vision. This is where I want this to go, and this is, for this to go here, we kind of need this rules. But saying a rule like every teenager and above will have an AR-15 rifle and 1,000 rounds of ammunition, that's kind of a dumb rule, quite frankly. Excuse me, as a rule. What? Right. So keep your rules loose. But like, we have rules on how much food you have to bring to the table. We have rules on how much attendance you have to come. Because if you ain't coming, you're not part of this group. And so we have rules on that. Everybody, when you're the new leader, you can kind of come up with some ideas. With your initial core, they all have to agree to those rules. And you're going to have to give some as a leader if you're trying to form a group. It's better to form a group as a little contingent of people. But then once you have those rules, you got to make sure people stick to them, because people will say, oh yeah, I like those rules. And then they won't stick to them. And I could tell you stories of that. And a good leader will go to that person who's not keeping the rules and say, hey, remember when we agreed to this? This is why. And, you know, convince them. But if not, then you got to do the leader thing and say, bye-bye. So, and that sucks.
Anybody else have a question? Going once, going twice. Sold to the guy with bat wings on his head. Everybody give it up for Pastor Fox.
Thank you.
Can you and your wife come up for a picture with us?
Yeah.
We're going to get some pictures with him real quick. The next event will take place at 3. That's going to be with John, the Iron Man Cantrell, local hero, world renowned boxer.
Thank you.
Speaking to what PJ was saying about your tribes and your groups and your small groups and your large groups, remember, we have mags forming all over the place. Midwest has a Topeka mag. We have a Lee Summit mag. There are other groups all around this area. How many of you have been to one of those? How many of you have been to a mag meeting for Topeka, for Lee Summit? Come to the mags. Check it out. We'll see you back here at 3, folks.